Are we recording?
Yeah, we're recording.
I missed the whole message. How are you this evening?
Oh, I'm here. I'm hanging in there.
Yes, yes, yes. I feel like spring is on its way. I'm ready. Are you ready to start the show?
Sure thing.
Hey everyone, welcome to or welcome back to One Man and One Woman, the podcast. I am one half of your co-hosts. I don't know how to not do it. I don't care. Tara Michelle.
And I'm the other half, Flan.
Yes, yes. J to the. Oh, no. Anyway. Okay, so I want to briefly talk a little bit about mental health. We're always going to be talking on this subject because it is just huge right now. We know people, we are people who suffer through anxiety and depression and fears and, OCD. And, people have a lot going on these days. So, my first question about this topic, and of course, it's not going to be in depth because we've hit on a lot of points already, but do you think it seems more prevalent today, the diagnosis of various things, or even new, unheard of, sometimes absolutely idiotic sounding things are coming out and people are being diagnosed with them? Or do you think it's always been this amount? It's just that we didn't have social media back in the day for us to know how far and wide it was reaching.
I think it's always been this amount. I think I saw a statistic years back that was um, something to the effect of like at any given point in time, 70% of the population is dealing with some mental health crisis or issue. So
That's sad.
I think mental health issues have always been more prevalent than we have really been aware of. I know in our community, it really wasn't something ever to talk about. I know growing up for me, it was you need
Very taboo.
Jesus, or you need to pray
Yeah.
more, or it was you need to just be in the church. It's a God thing. It was somehow like a failure in your spirituality or your character if you were going through something mental. So I think we definitely had issues that went undiagnosed and continue to have issues that go undiagnosed because of that. So whatever the number is, it's probably higher in reality.
I feel like things were happening, but I think depending on how far we go back, nah, I think it's way worse now than what it was. I don't think that the cavemen, you know, were bipolar. I mean, these things that are happening, I think a lot of stuff that's going on now is due to the food, the poisons that are being put into the food, the lack of nutrition in the food, even in the vegetables and stuff, because they're messing with that too. Um, I think the racism, the horrendous treatment of people, these tender age lovers, straight pedophile mofos trying to get rights. It's just, there's too much to be anxious about. There's too much to be depressed about, especially if you live in the United States or any third world. You know what? What's funny is actually people in third world countries who don't have all the luxuries we have seem to be the happiest people. They get up and they live life to survive, and that's it. They're not worried about cell phones. There's also statistics out there that say people who don't have cell phones or have social media live longer and have a greater life and are less stressed, have less, heart disease and all these other things that happen from being depressed and overeating and stuff. So I absolutely think it's at its all-time worst now across the world, and we're able to see it more because we're accessible to each other in ways that we never were. Um, but yeah, I think it's way more prevalent now. That's just my opinion. Um, how do you feel about the availability of programs and care or lack thereof, depending on what, you're dealing with?
I mean, I just have to speak from personal experience. I'm sure that there are some major deficiencies. I mean, I believe and feel like I know that there are some major deficiencies in mental health care in this country, in my state. But for me personally, the experience that I had when I was in a mental health crisis, um, I had just an outpouring of resources, uh, from the state of Texas, and I had a lot of things taken care of, and just me, I was just pushed in the direction to go get the things that I needed. It didn't require a whole lot of effort on my part, or research on my part. I ended up in a hospital, and from the hospital, I went from one facility to another facility, all kind of handheld and guided, through the process, all without spending a dime. I was unemployed and homeless at the time, so uh, there are programs and resources out there, um, and some really really good ones. Are there some places that we're lacking? Absolutely, and in major ways. Um, but there are some places where we're doing great work. Um, like I said, I went from a hospital to a facility that got me insurance. It got me, in front of a psychologist and a prescriber in order to get me on the medications that I needed to be on, to in order to start listening to the therapy and receiving the therapy. So, um, like I said, there are resources out there. I was quite impressed.
I think that's beautiful, and I'm glad to hear that, especially out there in the state of Texas. I think depending on what your issues are, there may be more resources and what state you're in, who has funding and things like that. I do know that when COVID happened and it was at the height, 2020, 2021, and the kids were made to stay home and homeschool. My daughter, my oldest daughter, had a lot of friends who crashed out, who couldn't function. They couldn't get schoolwork done. They couldn't, like, being isolated just broke them, like mentally and emotionally broke them. And we worked hard with the schools. Most of the counselors weren't at the schools anymore, like, because nobody was physically at the schools. The counselors just went on about their way and weren't available at all. And then we were calling every place. I had insurance, EAP through my job. There were no therapists, or let me say, the psychologists for these children. You have these people who will pop up with these associate degrees and these certifications talking about their therapists or their licensed counselors. Some people really want the real deal, and to me, that will always be a psychologist. I just don't want to deal with the rest of it because I feel like you didn't care to go to school long enough. You're not really gonna be able to help me. My own personal thoughts. Not saying anybody else has to feel that way, but if we could find someone who was accepting new patients, it was a 6 month to 9 month wait, and it was always a white man. These girls who are all beautiful shades of, yellows and browns and, darker chocolatey tones, couldn't find women, first of all, who they wanted to be comfortable with, or women of color. We had them, and they absolutely positively were booked to capacity and not taking new patients. So it's good to hear that some places have help for some needs, but I definitely think that we are lacking in a lot of the programs, specifically in urban areas, for people who may not make a lot of money, and for people who are looking for people who look like them, who they can be comfortable with. But again, I just love the fact that you had all the help that you needed. That's a beautiful blessing. So I want to jump over into what people do to cope, specifically escapism, um, the drugs and the alcohol of it. We are in an area now where people are taking and doing a lot of things to feel numb and to not have to go through all of this. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, again, I mean, the overarching sickness that all of this is just a symptom of is, our sick society. Our society is creating people who want to escape, creating people who have these things that they are dealing with that are so overwhelming and so cumbersome that they're turning to things. Um, and again, I think a lot of this stuff has been here forever. I think some of the accessibility to it is definitely increased over the years as we find ways to make synthetic versions of stuff, and people get more creative in their bathtubs and all kinds of things. But yeah, nah, it's people are running from something, and it's so prevalent that we got to start looking at ourselves. Like, what are we creating? What are we participating in that people need to escape from so desperately?
Exactly. What is so bad that people feel the only way out is to numb themselves to that level of capacity, which sometimes leads to to accidental overdoses, intentional overdoses, unaliving themselves. But people seem to really feel the need to numb everything.
Yeah, it's just too much. I say from uh, there's a reason to be outraged every day. There's something that a crazy politician is doing, or his best friend or his sidekick is doing. There's another police officer doing something crazy every day. There's a Karen video out every day. There's a reason to be upset all the time, and you almost have to search for reasons to be happy, or for something joyful. But if you want to find a reason to be scared or pissed off or anxious or whatever it is, that's readily available. They'll serve that up to you all day.
No truer words have been spoken. Can I get an amen and a hallelujah? Like for real, for real. Because you and I have talked about this before with regards to your algorithm. You have really worked to make sure that your algorithm is fly. You go to your page and it's a safe space. It's informative. It's black excellence. It's humor. It's great music. And it's like, wow. Like the fact that somebody would take the time to make to really curate what they're feeding and into their spirit, into their soul and their psyche on a daily basis is beautiful. But you absolutely will still get them trying to feed you all the mess, the fight videos and the violent videos that should never even be played on social media, the over sexualization, like it's all there, it's all toxic all the time. But to me, and this sounds heinous, and it's for somebody who has suffered through depression, specifically more than anything because of my mother and my ex-husband. Um, I think about antebellum slavery. I think about antebellum slavery and I think to myself, if my ancestors could go through the things that they went through, having their children stolen from them and sold and never talking to or finding them again, having their husbands killed, being raped and made to carry somebody else's baby, then having that baby used against us as a mulatto child to be the house Negro who, told on the other side. I mean, the amount of absolute breakdown, the heinous, most egregious, most violent, evil things to ever be done to human beings our ancestors went through. And they were not popping Xannies. And they were not, you know what I'm saying, doing any of the things, for the majority of the things that we're doing these days. And somehow still had that soul and that spirit and that resilience to keep going and to stand fast and stand strong until something else changed. So we are, I think, a weaker people. We have been broken down through the generations so much that we are just tired. And I'm not even sure that tired is a strong enough word. But I think what's going on with the government, the fact that people can go out here and work 40 hours or sometimes 60 hours a week and still can't make enough to live, inflation, black people redlining, higher interest rates. Everybody gets a business in our neighborhood but us. There's just so much. Our men are locked up unjustly, unfairly. Men, state of Missouri, lousy, miserable state of Missouri. They like to execute men where there's evidence that they're innocent just to get a black body up out of here to hurt the people and keep him in line. Look what we can do. We can have prosecutors and everybody saying, "Give this man a stay at execution, kill him anyway," and nobody's ever going to do anything. Even when we find out he's innocent, we don't care. So, in watching the George Floyd video, knowing what happened to Breonna Taylor, knowing what happened to Sandra Bland, it's just it's egregious. Like you can't escape it. And then it's on every news channel. It's on all of the social media platforms. There's not enough joy. There's not enough happiness. There's no hope. Barack promised y'all hope, and I don't think he delivered at all. And this is just where we are. So when it comes to the drinking and the drug, and I'm going to stick specifically to drugs at this time because some people drink just to kick it. Like it's not always about needing to escape. They just want to have fun, get loose, get naked at the club, and act a fool. Things that they would never do while they were sober. But which do you think is worse, prescription drugs or street drugs?
I mean, I don't think there's a worse. Um, I find it. I went through this because I broke my wrist a few years ago, And I remember, getting surgery and them telling me that they were going to need to prescribe me painkillers and me, I'm talking to the doctor and I'm saying, hey, I have a history of substance issues. Please don't prescribe me a narcotic. And he acknowledged what I said. He congratulated me on my sobriety and proceeded me to prescribe me, I think it was oxycodone or something like that. And he only, to his credit, he only prescribed enough to get me through whatever it is, the aftercare for the surgery. So it was like 5 pills and no refills, no nothing like that. So maybe he safeguarded me in that sense. But yeah, I find it hard to believe that in all of these years of medical research and all the technological advances that we made and the AI and everything, that we still have not found anything to manage pain better than these highly addictive, life destroying opioid substances that we use in 3,000 different ways, you know. Um, so, yeah, I don't think one is worse than the other, but uh, I don't quite understand how, from a pharmaceutical standpoint, we haven't moved past this.
I would say my opinion is the prescription drugs are worse. The example you just gave, I'm not giving him credit for anything. You said, I am, living a life of sobriety. Then he turns around. I don't care if he gave you one. Those five that he gave you could have sent you down a rabbit hole of going and find your next five from whoever you could get them from, who knows what they be cut or laced with. So he gets no credit from me. That was a piss poor job, and he should have lost his license because he wasn't listening to the patient say, you cannot do this to me because it could just ruin my life. But I'll say the prescription drugs are worse because they're given legally. And too many of these doctors can be bought and sold, and they are out here giving people things like let's talk about Heath Ledger. Because nobody was watching his records back and forth, and he was out traveling and went to a different doctor that wasn't his own. And, even to his fault, if he didn't give them the full list of what he was on, he gets prescribed medications that don't interact with each other. And boom, he's not here anymore. They don't work well with each other. He's not here anymore. So I think the prescription drugs are worse because people think the doctor gave it to me, it has to be safe. And then they get addicted. Again, like you said, they're making these things that people are getting addicted to at alarming rates. They continue to give them to them. They create these monsters, and then they go and seek those same pills on the street that have been cut and laced with things. They don't know anything about that. They're thinking, same name, got to be the same quality of safeness from a doctor's office. It's insane to me. Whereas when you're dealing with a street drug, you don't feel like there's any level of safety when you buy crack. You know there's going to be ramifications and possibilities of death if you go buy propofol or whatever the stuff that mess was that killed Michael Jackson, and fentanyl and all these other things off the street, meth. You don't feel safe. The doctor is not prescribing that to you. So I think in terms of people innocently getting duped and hooked, the prescription drugs are definitely the worst. You got students who are going in their parents' medicine cabinets. They mama got everything under the sun that she probably shouldn't have, and they're just running through. They bring all of their mom's pills, or a handful of them, and they all throw the pills in a bowl at a party, at a frat house, or wherever they are. And you just go and you grab how many ever pills you want out the bowl and take them all. Like, this is insanity. And at this point, people are calling, doctors like the same thing that they calling a dope boy on the street. They're one in the same. One of them has the legal right to do it, and the other one doesn't. My next question is, do you think legalizing all drugs would make things better? Kind of if you can't beat them, join them type of thing. I think it might be Amsterdam or somewhere where you can go out and go to whatever little storefront or whatever little place and get your drugs, do your drugs, be in a bed. There's somebody there watching everybody. And if you start to OD, because when you signed in, you told them what you had, what you were going to be using, they can give you the counteractive situation to that or medicine for that. Do you think because people are still going to do what they want to do and get access to it however they want to and risk their lives, sell their bodies and their souls for it. Do you think there's an argument to be had about doing something like that? Setting it up to be as safe as you possibly can with little Narcan stations and all of that good stuff? Or do you think we should just not enter into that realm at all?
No, I don't. I don't think you ever like. I don't think you ever indulge the indulgers. You know, like I don't think we necessarily have to like lean into this because people are going to do it anyway. I think you still try to make it. It's the same argument with everything else that's going on. You know, you see moral depravity happening, and it becomes so ubiquitous that people are like, "Well, everybody's doing it," so then we stop acting like it's wrong. Like now, you know, yes, people are going to abuse things, but we need to always look at it like abuse. And I think even in Amsterdam and you know those places, some of the harder stuff is still illegal. They still frown on like heroin and things like that. Like you know, there's a lot you can do, but you know they have limits. So yeah, I think that, and I think the real issue a lot of times, and we talked about this last week, is um, there is definitely a spirit of rebellion in this country. And I think if you made everything legal, if you made heroin and meth and coke and crack legal, people would just try to find the next illegal high. Like I think people enjoy doing something that they're not supposed to be doing, and that may feed into a lot of it. I think if you make it all legal, it might not be as fun. But I don't know. I
That's
don't know.
sad, but that's true. I agree with you 100%. So, what do you think about the possible? First of all, I hate AI. And the only thing I hate more than AI, no, I can't say that because I don't like evil and all that stuff. But in terms of, just stupidity, I can't stand Elon Musk. So when I think about where he could be beneficial, not him, he's always going to be worthless, but um were these robots that he's harping on about that he thinks that we're parasites and they're going to replace us and the world's going to be a better place. He might not be lying there. He might not be wrong, no, because humans are definitely parasites. There are some worse than others, but parasites to this earth for sure. um Maybe there's something they can do inside of AI. Maybe there's something they can do with these robots where you buy your little personal robot and when you're going through it, you have an anxiety attack. You can attach some probes to your head and it can do something, zap you or something. Or I don't know how that works, but I think back to Demolition Man. And I think back to them stopping STDs because nobody was actually swapping body fluids anymore. They were putting on those VR things and doing, the things that people would normally do. And it was affecting their mind. They could feel it and experience all those things because that device was hooked into that. What if there's a way one day to give that escapism, like even if it's a virtual world that people could live in where they could program their lives to be everything they wish their real lives could be? The danger in that is the people are never going to want to come out. You got to remember that you got to come out and eat and use the bathroom and live your life to pay the money to pay for that virtual world. But what if they could come out with something like that that would put an end to, bipolarism, to hopefully schizophrenia, because that seems to like just be the one right there. The thing that people need Ritalin and Adderall for, the ADDs, the ADHDs. What if we could break down the barriers and get people through that mess?
I'm not against it. I think those efforts need to happen uh, simultaneously. Um, Again, I think you know the overarching issue is you know the world that we live in. So while we work on that stuff, while we work on AI and VR or whatever we can do to help people find a healthier escape, um, to also be looking at why people want to escape and what we can do, you know, as a society to you know maybe trim down some of that. Um, it's a very sick place that we're in, and everybody's trying to get away from it and find something else to do or find something else. So find some way to not feel what they feeling. Like these are all like very troublesome things for us as a group. So Yeah, I'm with you on if AI and virtual reality or whatever other tool people want to use um, can help, I'm all for it. But let's work on the diet stuff too. Let's make therapy more readily available and
Therapy
prevalent.
should be free. In this
Let's
country, therapy should absolutely positively be free.
let's talk about these things in schools. Let's talk about these things more on shows. Let's do all of it at the same time. Let's try to make this
Take
a
some
less
set up a new tax. I think that people would gladly pay a little extra tax and start a fund so that they're if you have insurance in your job and you can afford therapy, then you be responsible for it. But we shouldn't have veterans and people who went and saw and did horrendous things coming back home and can't get the help because the VA is completely jacked and all this other madness. So like you said, we need to make therapy readily accessible for any and all who need it. And that should be a top priority. If we do that, we won't have these school shootings. If we do that, we won't have these super crazy violent outbursts. So yeah, we have a lot to work on simultaneously. But I would just, with somebody like Elon Musk at the top right now pretending to be the president, he thinks we're parasites. He said, "All right, in terms of the robots who are not fragile, who can do the things that fragile and weak human beings cannot, does the human life really matter? Does it really matter in the stream of things? These robots aren't going to have anxiety issues, depression, bipolarism, schizophrenia. They are going to be able to handle more, weight, do things faster, work longer. You don't have to pay them. Like in the terms, in the grand scheme of things, when we're thinking about it like that, I don't think Elon would care about any of those things if he's making these things to replace us. But in the meantime, between time to fund his stuff, because I think he just lost 16% on the Dow or in the, whatever stock situations, maybe he will start to do that. And maybe some people can benefit before he turns the robots on them and eradicates everybody.
hmm
We'll see.
We shall. We shall.
I feel sorry for human beings. I specifically feel sorry for people who are in war torn countries like the Congo and Haiti and places like that. And here in the United States where there are just I can't stop saying egregious, vile, heinous things, horrendous things happening. And I would hate to think about relying on AI to fix it. So if we come back into the realm of reality, what do you think are some of the things that we could start to do that we could have control over? I can't mandate therapy to be free. I don't know how to diagnose people with anything, and I don't know how to make shrooms or anything that's hey them trees though. The people swear by them. But for those who don't want to smoke, who appreciate their lungs, what are some of the things that we could do to start to assist people and maybe back them out of this need to escape through the use of drugs and alcohol? You think there's anything like maybe meditation?
Meditation is good. I think, just if we're talking about what responsibility you can have for your brother or whatever. For me, as a creator, and dealing with other creators, it's just we need to create some balance for people. We need to create some. It is very low hanging fruit. It's very easy pickings to do the topics that we know get everybody's attention. We know if we do a battle of the sexes, or we do some these salacious things, that we're going to get the likes and views. It's not healthy and good for us to just only have that constantly fed to us over and over and over and over and over again. So some of us just provide some balance. Just let's start balancing things out so that the world is not just dark and dreary and ugly and mean and violent, place. Like this, spread some love from time to time.
I think that was a beautiful answer. I think that was a great answer. I think the only issue with that is you got to try to find a way to market it to them because people love a train wreck. And when you somewhere talking some sense, you're boring, you know, old fashioned. Like right now, people aren't mentally and emotionally mature anymore for the most part, especially depending on the age group that we're talking about. But I think we need to get out more. I think we need to get back to family reunions. We need to get back to picnics. We need to get back to meeting up with each other and going out and not to the club and not, to the bar, but going to the park, do some paddle boats, go whitewater rafting, rappelling, skydiving if that's your thing, bungee jumping over the water, guys. Stay from, don't do it over the land. Lord have mercy, Jesus. Whatever you like to do, get up and get out and be active. Be in the beautiful sun. Um, you know, we are so lucky to have melanin and the sun loves us. Still use your sunscreen though, people. Um, Go swimming, travel, see the world. Get out of the house and go have some fun. Meet up with some friends, or even if you do, you can go to the botanical gardens or anywhere. You can do bird watching. You could just take a walk. You don't even need someone else. But when you get out and you get into that sun, when you get out and you go and you watch nature and the beauty of it, somewhere safe, because we don't do bees and mosquitoes or insects of any kind. But go fishing. I learned how to fish last year, and I'm still a beginner. Let me not, but it's so relaxing, so cool. This little black girl here, and just, I still can't believe I know how to fish. And, my black friend taught me. I used to think that fishing was for white people and hiking was for white people, but now I do both of those things. So I think we need to be more present and more physical and more in the real world. I remember the first time I took a hiatus from my YouTube channel, and somebody was like, "Where you been?" I came back and I told them, "Look, there were things that were going on in my real life. Like, you have losses of loved ones and friends and, jobs and just stuff that happens. And sometimes you have to realize that the fantasy of it all or your little side hustle or whatever isn't as important as clocking that real time hour or those real minutes and that real time with those people that aren't going to be here for forever. You know what I'm saying? So I think we need to do that more. I think we need to make a conscious effort to exist like we used to. We didn't hear about ADHD and ADD and anxiety and depression when we was kids. We was outside playing from the time the sun came up to the street lights came on. We ran all that stuff out. We ran the extra energy out. And so now you see the difference. People are falling apart. These kids are softer. These kids are being diagnosed with the stupidest things, and everything is wrong with them. Instead of somebody saying, "Take the kid outside to play," now I can't. This stuff is really irritating to me. But I think that would help more um, in real time than anything else. To in real time get your butt up and get out the house. Be with people, touch them, hold their hand, hug, watch them laugh, not through a phone, but be there with them and feel the vibration of their vocal cords as they're laughing or singing or doing whatever. Be a real human. The way that y'all gonna be up in these VR things, living that life. Be a real human before you stick yourself inside of a fake world. I love this episode. I did. I think this is very informative. Again, I like having these jeweled conversations where we can just share our thoughts, give some suggestions, and maybe spark a conversation with other people who are going to be listening. This makes me happy because these things are very important to talk about, and I don't see it happening a lot.
I got you.
Anything else you want to say to the people?
Yeah, diversify your bonds.
All right, guys, as always, we're to be kind to others and yourself and be good to others. However, I be saying that, y'all know what I say at this point. It's fine. Holla.
Holla.